Coming up now, 7:09. It is Acadiana's Morning News. And a subset of that show is Wingin It Wednesday. And our panelists are here today. We've got Stafford Barnett.
Good morning.
Warren Cottle.
Good morning.
And Carol Ross.
Good
the beautiful
morning.
Carol Ross. Oh, by the way,
Stop.
29
No,
and
come on,
oh
stop.
so fine.
Stop.
She's 29 and oh so fine.
And holy.
Happy birthday, Carol.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Thank you.
Should we do it?
No.
Y'all stop. No, don't do it. Please don't do it.
Bumper music.
We don't need another reason to have ratings drop as far as
yeah.
our singing capabilities go here in the studio.
Okay, that's true. That's true. All right, so let's get down to business with topics and talk about, oh my goodness, let me just tell you. There are just topics and topics and topics today. All right, so our first topic, and I'm just going to start this way. We'll start with Stafford on this issue, and we'll see where all of it takes us this morning. Okay, shutdown averted, but in 3 weeks, we're going to be doing it again. So is it kick the can down the road? Is it about jockeying for position because of midterm elections? Give us your whole kind of 10,000-foot view on this, Stafford. What do you think?
Yeah, it is. I think it's going to shut down again in 3 weeks. And I think it is about jockeying for position. You know, everybody's complicit in this, right? So the Republicans have said, hey, this is Democrats holding the citizens hostage for DACA. The Democrats have said this is the Republicans allowing CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, to not get voted on 4 months ago, to put in this, to create this deal. We have a president who said, hey, we would have a deal, a bipartisan deal, if you just bring it to me, and then turned around and kind of backed away from that. So, I mean, it's everybody's fault, right? The Republicans, while they do have control of the House, they do not have enough control of the Senate to be able to push through their agenda or push through what they want to get pushed through. So the short-term spending deal, I think, you saw this week it started to get really ugly, where, you know, the money that Schumer promised to go to the wall, he's backed away from that and said he's not going to do that. The White House has said any DACA deal is dead on arrival. So it's an ugly situation, and it's politics. I don't hold any one particular party responsible. You know, I made the comment probably a week ago that because Republicans were in control of the House and Senate, that in the presidency, that they should be able to get stuff done. But I was wrong about that. The reality is it's going to take some bipartisanship and people working together to get this done. DACA needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed soon. This is 800,000 kids who didn't have a choice about coming to the United States, who have integrated, who don't have a home country to go to start the process of becoming a citizen over. And the reality is these kids would not be in jeopardy if it wasn't for Trump rescinding the DACA resolution. So I hope these guys find a way to work together. I had a little hope during the government shutdown that you'd see maybe, Lindsey Graham step up to the plate, which it seems like he's done, and provide some leadership. Mitch McConnell shot down funding for the troops, and then everybody turned around and said, the Democrats are holding the troops hostage, when a Democrat resolution from Claire McCaskill had come to the table that said, hey, let's fund, soldier pay. So it's politics, and it's ugly.
All right. Warren, what do you think?
One of the things that I definitely disagree with is the fact that talking about it being an ugly process. I think it's a beautiful process. Is that Congress's job is to make the budget, and they are so derelict on their job of doing so, and it's all of them up there. You know, we went for 8 years without having a budget passed. Before this administration came in, we finally had a budget passed. So they just operate on a continuing resolution, which they have done for years and years. And they did that so much under Ronald Reagan, where that they promised a budget, and that then finally he said, look, this is the end. You send me another continuing resolution, and I will veto it. Your job, do your job. Present your budget, and then we'll take a look at it. And so that's what they did there for a little while. And, so then they want to play these stupid games, and they sit there and talk about a government shutdown. The last time this thing came up, if I remember correctly, all the people who knew said there's enough cash to run the government for about 3 years. if it come to a complete shutdown. And so whenever they had the one under Obama, they made this big deal to go out there and close down the national parks and even shut down the World War II Veterans Memorial when you had those old guys up there who wanted to go by and see it. Oh, you had all of that stuff, So Trump says, the national parks and all that's going to stay open. Then they said, back then when Reagan, they shut it down with Reagan, and they said, well, the government shut down. And he said, and then what's going to happen? And they said, well, we don't know. He said, well, we're getting ready to find out. And then when they came out and said, all the non-essential people can stay home. And just across the country, people said, well, if they're non-essential, then why are they on the payroll?
All right, Carol, you're up next. What do you think? Just political maneuvering? What do you think about this whole situation?
Well, I mean, it's Washington, D.C. Of course, there's politics involved, but there is a right way and wrong way. And to say that Lindsey Graham was willing to that it was a bipartisan deal between he and Dick Durbin, that's a joke. They're both on the same side. I mean, Lindsey Graham made no bones about it. He's right on the same side with the Democrats on DACA. In terms of the shutdown, is it going to happen again in 3 weeks? Probably so. But isn't it an amazing sight to see Chuck Schumer spanked by Nancy Pelosi and his fellow progressives, for quote unquote caving? Well, I don't know that he caved. I don't know if he had any choice at that point in time. And still, they would blow their cover as to being reasonable. He always likes to get out there with his little granny glasses and we're the reasonable guys and they're the unreasonable guys. Well, if you keep holding the line on this when the Republicans are saying, we gave you everything you want, can you just say yes? You gave everything you want. There's no deadline on DACA. Why are you folding DACA into this? And then it became very apparent, and even their buddies in the left-wing media blew the whistle on them and said, you could have taken this deal and averted this shutdown. The whole thing was on you, buddy. And so what's going to happen coming up? I don't know. But this backlash about no funding for the wall. So what's new? They always do that rope-a-dope. Yeah, we're going to give you the money for the wall, and it's never appropriated. Oh, yeah, we agree to it, but they never appropriate the money. So what's new? There's nothing new in this.
All right. You have some thoughts? Come on.
I think Carol brings up a great point. There is a severe lack of trust on both sides up there. The Democrats have said they don't trust what the president's going to do because he has been wishy-washy on stuff. And there have been situations where, exactly like what Carol has said, money's come to the table and it hasn't been appropriated. 80% of the polling says 80% of Americans support taking care of the DACA children, situation, right? Mm-hmm. And I hope that they find a resolution for it. But I think you hit the nail on the head. If these guys have got to figure out, and they've got to stop building these systems where not trusting each other works to their political advantage.
What?
And that's what's happening right now. They have a system where if you don't vote lockstep with either party, you start losing these positions, these favorite positions up there, and that's wrong, right? I think that's a bad way. It builds mistrust. It creates bipartisanship.
Well, people in this country may agree that something has to be done about DACA, but when you get into the weeds on that and you try to figure out exactly what you're talking about when it comes to some path to what? Legalization, citizenship, whatever.
Amnesty.
It's a very different situation when you go into the details. And besides that, there are some of those quote-unquote dreamers who've been here for many years. That's a different situation from what Obama did illegally, and the court stepped in before Trump did and said he did it illegally because he did it as an executive order, and it was supposed to be done legislatively by Congress, but he did it by an executive order. That was illegal.
Definitely a huge failure on the part of Democrats to not get that done when they had control.
Warren?
That's such a screwed up mess, and it goes back decades. It's not just over the last few years, but I watched a thing one time where they passed a law, and I believe this was passed during the Cheney administration, where it said that any person, the undocumented person in this country, before they can be sent back, they have got to be represented by an attorney before an immigration court. And these judges' panels were on C-SPAN one time talking about it, and this main judge said they can handle about 300 cases per judge. And he said that she said my caseload is something like 3,600, and so these things just get bogged down for years. They just make an appeal, file a motion, and this and that, and that jams up the system so much. I mean, there's plenty of blame to go around in all of this, but I want to make one statement. Talking about the leadership with Lindsey Graham, which I almost had to grab an air sickness bag. But then when you mention people like Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin, Dick Durbin is a senator from Illinois. He is the one who called the terrorists in Iraq. He said the real terrorists in Iraq are the United States Marines. They're the ones that are over there terrorizing the people. And so, very uncharacteristic of me is I sent him, I think it was even faxes back then, because that was several years ago, and emails. And I think about the third one I sent him, it was pretty strong, like they talk about Trump using some strong language. And the end of it, in big bold letters, I put on there 2 words. The second word was "you" with an exclamation point. And I meant every word of it. And it was like 2 days later that he came out and apologized for making that statement. Of course, said he was misunderstood and all that. And they said that he was inundated by phone calls and faxes.
Because when you're a Marine, you're a Marine.
I don't care. You just go out there and call the American military terrorists, and you're the one, the bad guys over. He is sickening. And when I look at him, I look at Chuck Schumer, plus Lindsey Graham, plus John McCain, plus a few others,
Yep. You can't tell the difference. There's not a dime's worth of difference. Two quick things.
Yes, and then we're going to start taking a call and wrapping up.
Obama had to take Dick Durbin to the woodshed when he misrepresented a meeting that was held during the Obama administration. Yes, that happened. The other thing is the real plum here for the Democrats is chain migration. Border wall, DACA, that's just chain migration will exponentially change the nature of this country.
All right, one quick call, and then we've got to go to a break. Hi, you're on Wingin' It Wednesday. What do you think, please?
Yeah. First of all, term limits. They need term limits for all politicians. This is ridiculous. Second, who in their right mind would hold the military and children's insurance hostage over illegal immigration? Third, if the government shuts down, all these politicians should be docked on their pay. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much. Yes,
can I address?
Yes, of course,
yeah.
sir.
So this is common knowledge. Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill offered an amendment before the government shut down to make sure that the military paychecks were funded, and it was shut down by Republican leadership. So, and the only reason I'm saying that is because I'm pointing out the parties is that we've said, hey, the left is anti-military in this process. That's not the case. They came out and said, hey, we want to make sure the military is taken care of during this, and Republicans had a chance to do that and said no.
All right. We got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll continue with our discussion, and we go on with panelists. We have Stafford Barnett here. We have Warren Cottle. We have Carol Ross, who is the birthday girl. And we've got more Wingin' It Wednesday on the way. But how can it be? You're so gorgeous. You radiate happiness. I'm telling you, 29 and oh so fine, right?
You got to come to some of my yoga classes, Bert.
10 years younger than Jack Benny. There's not more people out there who understand that.
But I do.
Yes, it is sweet emotion. Sometimes it's angry emotion, though. It's all across the board, I guess, really. Wingin' It Wednesday. All right, Carol Ross, Warren Cottle, and Stafford Barnett joining us in studio this morning. All right, so can we take one call real quick before we move to the next topic? This person has been waiting patiently. Okay, yes, Warren gives his approval.
You have my permission.
That's Stafford, and I think, all right.
2 or 3, major 2 or 3.
That's right. All right, you're next. Please, thank you for waiting.
Yeah, I guess our questions are as much about a statement that we've been through this bait and switch before. Democrats promised Ronald Reagan if he gave amnesty to everybody that they would secure the borders. They lied. And it's the same thing's happening again. I'm good with most. When you poll people, most of us agree these kids have been raised here. Citizenship and no pathway for their parents. That's nonsense. The parents are the ones that broke the law. They should not be rewarded. And I want to secure the borders, and I believe a wall is necessary in some places. I want to secure the borders. I want to do away with this chain migration. And what Trump's saying is just common sense. Democrats are idiots. I can't help it.
Okay. All right. Well,
don't hold back.
It is the chain migration.
Tell us how you really feel.
That's the plum.
Don't leave anything on the table.
Chain migration. That is it. They're not talking much about that, but that's it. So Trump is right to absolutely hold the line on that and the Visa lottery system, which makes no sense at all.
Derek. Any thoughts? Anything next on topic list?
As far as that topic goes, in my opinion, it just seems very silly for adults. And this is 10,000-foot view about how many things were put on the table, taken off the table about this government shutdown. Do we not want to fund things? I don't understand what the argument is.
Okay, that's a great point, because in the break, Warren and Stafford were talking about, how they maneuver and manipulate to put certain things that, it's going to close and it's not going to close. What were you saying about that, Stafford? We didn't get into the heart of it.
So I think it was pre-Jimmy Carter. There wasn't any government shutdowns, right? So it was something that was kind of created by both parties to deal with certain situations. And after the first shutdown, and I don't remember when the first one happened, but after the first shutdown,
there were multiple shutdowns during Reagan.
I think that's when the first one was, if I'm not mistaken. So they put a plan together to say, hey, the first time that we shut down, we don't know what's going to shut down. So they said all essential personnel are going to stay. So they started making a list like, okay, this office will stay open, this office will stay closed, these people will get paid, these people won't. And so it's kind of an oddly manufactured crisis. And so if you look at the people who, and I was telling this to Warren, who get kind of hammered by a government shutdown, as people who are trying to buy a home, because you can't run your credit through the federal system. So it holds people up. If you're under contract, it can cause some problems. But if you look at who else is getting paid, the welfare checks are still going out. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid still going out. Military still going out. The Postal Service is still running.
Let me say one thing. A tale of two shutdowns, the way Obama did it and the way Trump did it under Mick Mulvaney. Mick Mulvaney is brilliant on the budget, and he's absolutely correct. And what he did, especially on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is another thing. However, they figured out that a bunch of these agencies have reserve funds. They could provide the basic services during the shutdown. They didn't. Obama went for the high-profile things like the monuments and the national parks, and the thing that would affect the most average people, so that they could turn against, the Republicans. Well, it didn't happen this time because Trump is a businessman and he has a lot of smart people in there, and they figured out how to keep it all pretty smoothly. Did you notice a shutdown? We talked to a lot of people. Nobody noticed a shutdown partly because it happened on the weekend, but the other part is because they managed it properly. They managed it to where it didn't hurt so many people. And by the way, it wasn't until the Republicans grew a spine under Ronald Reagan that we had shutdowns. They were acquiescent on a whole bunch of things up until then, and the only reason we had shutdowns under his administration because of him. It wasn't because of Congress. It was because of him. He stood up. He stood up to the Democrats. He knew exactly who he was. He knew what the people wanted. Got an overwhelming mandate. You can't argue with that. He got every state except one.
And he stood up to the Republicans.
Yes, he did.
He stood up to all of them.
He stood up to all of them.
But on the other hand, they keep saying, well, Trump. Trump said, bring me a bill and I'll sign it. Where was the bill?
He backed out of that deal.
Well, no. Where was the bill? Where was the bill?
There was no bill.
No bill made it to his desk.
They can give him lip service.
Got together with Dick Durbin and put something on paper. They said it was dead on arrival.
Well, the fix was in. When Lindsey Graham and Dick Durbin get together, the fix was in. Yes, exactly. The fix was in. He absolutely knew that it was going to be another rope-a-dope. There's going to be another rope-a-dope. It was nothing in writing. Nothing in writing.
It's amazing how we can rewrite
history. And they've had the rugs pulled out from under them every single time.
The guys came together, got on every news channel. They said, hey, we've got a deal.
Yeah, they can lie on every news channel they want. They're very adept at lying.
And the White House comes on and says,
that's why they're successful.
That little meeting we had was just complete BS.
All right, let's go to the phones.
So where was the bill?
Let's go to the phones.
The devil's always in the details, and there were no details. There were no details.
All right.
Stafford, that makes no sense at all. Congress's job is to write the bill and pass it. And then it's up to the president either to sign it, veto it, or let it become law. So Congress was derelict in their duties.
And
they did
by
not
the way,
pass a bill.
His interpretation of a clean bill and their interpretation of a clean bill, you can believe, were worlds apart.
Let's remember that congressmen and House members are not subservient to the president.
Absolutely not. That's my whole point. It's their job to pass the bill.
They are equals.
Thank you so much. Another tutorial from Stafford Bennett. Barnett. I'm so happy about that.
You're welcome.
That's the whole argument.
I'll put on class after this if you like.
Yeah, very good. I need an excuse from that class.
Their job is to pass legislation, which they have not done.
I agree with you.
They did not pass a budget for 8 solid years.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. We've got to get to folks who've been waiting patiently. You're up. Go ahead, please. Hi, caller. Go ahead, please.
I have a quick question. I seem to remember during the Obama years when when Congress did not pass a budget, everybody was scared to death that if Congress didn't pass a budget, that the president would then have authority to go back and either pass a budget or do something, and they were afraid he was going to do that, and they were afraid he was going to have all kinds of legislation in that when he did it. Now, is that a reason why they're always passing something, a resolution or whatever?
The president can't unilaterally pass spending bills at all.
Okay, who's next? Anybody for a wrap up here?
Lessons with Stafford Barnett.
You know, the big
Civics
deal
101.
was
Plan
to
to cut that class.
Line item veto. What Ronald Reagan asked for,
Plan to
line
cut that
item
one.
veto. Congress finally passed the line item veto bill under Bill Clinton and gave it to him. And what happened?
To answer, I don't know.
The Supreme Court voided it and said that the president cannot have line item veto because it is Congress's duty to handle the budget.
I see.
We should do that in Louisiana.
All right, coming up now on 7:33.
And speaking about Louisiana, we'll move on to our next topic with that. We're going to take a break, or?
No, you go for it,
Go for
man.
it now.
Derek's in charge.
What happened here in the state was that Governor John Bel Edwards just Monday unveiled what's being called the doomsday budget, the worst-case scenario, if you will. One of the biggest cuts is to TOPS, which would see an 80% drop in funding. Was anything accomplished with this budget, or were these just fear tactics? We have to go to the legislature to see what they want to do. Carol, let's start with you as far as state budget goes.
Let's start with me. Do you believe a word of what this governor says? He is very adept. He is a political ventriloquist. He'll get your attention over here and then do something over here, and he's very good about finding the things that will really hurt the people the most and then get them screaming, and we got to have more money. The only thing that's different from the other Edwards is he didn't threaten to shut off the dialysis machines. That's the only thing different, which the other one threatened to do on a regular basis. We don't know what's going to come out of this. We have no idea. He can throw out the worst-case scenario. He's already made noises like he's going to go along with the Republicans on requiring work for Medicaid, but he is the architect of his own demise in terms of the expansion of Medicaid, which is breaking the budget right there. That is what is breaking that's the parasite that's going to consume the host before it's all over with. There are many able-bodied people that he expanded, and they expanded the criteria, and now we're worried that it won't be there for the people who really need it. Those in poverty, those who have serious financial issues, those who have serious medical issues. So long term, the long-term health of Medicaid, I think, and of the state is in great jeopardy. In terms of what this governor has proposed, I don't think you can believe one thing that has come out in that budget right now. He gives lip service and keeps saying that he's going to follow the recommendations of the budget task force, but we haven't seen that yet. Then he tries to throw the monkey on the back of the Republicans and say, bring me a plan, when multiple plans have been brought to him. Multiple bills have been written, and his cronies in the Senate, namely John Alario and Francis Thompson and that group, have killed a lot of those things, and then they've bought off enough Republicrats in the House to deep six the real conservatives in the House from doing anything. They have proposed a number of budgets, a number of fiscal measures that would bring the state into accountability. But the biggest problem is we have no real transparency. I'd like to see what Ohio did. They did checkbook.com, where every bill, every appropriation, everything is online, and you can track what contractors were benefited from that particular appropriation, whatever. Checkbook.com. We've got to have more transparency, or we're never going to get to the bottom of this mess. And the House and the Senate should do their job. A lot of those things are not statutorily protected, and by the way, they do regular fund sweeps all the time.
Interesting. All right, Stafford, you're next. What do you think?
I think that that to put the situation in Baton Rouge on the back of John Bel Edwards is silly. So he is the executive of the state that's been elected, but we've got representatives up there who, instead of taking a step back and saying, hey, we have a problem, which I think both Republicans and Democrats, we all unilaterally agree that we have a problem in Baton Rouge, right? Our funding system is bad. Our tax structure is arcane. And it's time for us to do something about it. I mean, Warren and I talked before we even came in the studio today about, Louisiana needs a constitutional convention. We need to scrap everything, right, and start over and be more intelligent. I get really tired of hearing people say, "Hey, why can't we be more like Texas?" Well,
yeah, that's getting tiring.
But yeah, because we're too lazy to elect people that'll make us more like Texas, right? And we're too and so my point is this is what's going on in Baton Rouge is a lesson in voter apathy. I think that John Bel Edwards is I said when he got elected, it's going to be very tough for him to make anything that he does positive, right? And what a short memory we have. John Bell didn't put us in this situation. We had years and years and years and years of bad governing from Jindal and the people around him, right? We didn't have a House and a Senate in Baton Rouge that would hold Jindal accountable or make him work. And like Warren said, the guy's got line on and veto, so he can shoot down any project that you have that you bring to him. So I think this is him saying, hey, if we don't do something about this, this is what's going to happen. I get the message. It's the same thing that we just saw happen in Washington from both parties. It's politics. I feel for the guy. I hope he finds a way to correct us. I hope the Republicans in Baton Rouge and the Democrats in Baton Rouge find a way to work together and for the betterment of our state instead of the betterment of their party or of their own personal political gain.
All right, Warren, you're next.
Yeah, the problem, hoping they find a way to work together, is the fact they've been working together. That's why we're in this damn mess. Is that that the governor doesn't do anything that the legislature doesn't pass. Moon was one of those talking about all the $5 million in new taxes that John Bel Edwards has given us, and on and on and on. Every one of those was passed by the legislature. The legislature is predominantly Republican, and the Senate. But here's the point. I listened to the governor's speech. When was that? Yesterday, the day before, whatever
Monday.
it was.
Mm-hmm.
And look, there's not 4 people out there going to understand what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
I thought that it was an excellent speech. It was one of those that I've been waiting for years to hear a governor make, and I thought he was very articulate. He laid it out just like he sees it. Just like he sees it. And then he turned around and said, it is up to you, legislature, to do your job and bring me the budget, which I wholeheartedly agree. I said, thank God he finally said that. So now, here's what they need to do. They need to go out there and bring him the budget. But what they need to start with is saying, fine, you want to know where the cuts are? Then let's look at all of them. And let's lay the cards on the table. These 18,000 contracts of consultants that work for the state that nobody knows who in the hell they are, or how much money they get, or what do they do, or who gets paid. Lay it out there. Let's look at it. Let's just start right down the line. How much money is this person, this group making? How many of these old worthless politicians that are now lobbyists and whatever, that on and on and on? There's plenty of places to cut. They came up with a very good program. The House did, or part of the House did, when they had that that standstill budget, where they were just going to fund like 98% of it. Well, that wasn't good enough, So John Bel Edwards is responsible for 90% of this stuff because he was around during the general administration. He voted for every one of those budgets.
Every budget.
So did all the rest of them up there. Jay Darden was one of the main architects of all of these things that's put us in this mess. And they know what the mess is, and they refuse to do anything about it, except they just want to keep going. Why? because there's so many of the pigs at the trough are their friends. It's where they're getting their campaign contributions from, and the last thing they want to do is to stop the flow of funds to the slop trough.
And believe me, just because John Bell Edwards says, bring me a budget, what he's manipulating behind the scenes with his buddies and his minions in the legislature is a totally different animal. Believe me, what he says and what he does and what many of them say and what many of them do are two different things. There was a piece of legislation, I can't remember exactly which one it was, that it passed through the House, it passed through the Senate. It was about accountability or something like that. And who filed suit against it? John Bell Edwards, when he was in the legislature, and it killed it in the courts. It was a reform piece of legislation. By the way, fulfilling the role of former Treasurer John Kennedy, Schroeder came out with a very strong message about, really reforming the budget, really doing something about how we do business. Because if we keep doing it the same way, we're going to get the same result, as we know.
7:42. We've got a break. We've got some weather. We'll take your calls, 232-1542. All right, so we go back to the phone lines. This person patiently waiting. Hi, caller. You're on Wingin It Wednesday. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Just wanted to say you guys have pointed out some very good comments this morning. The thing I don't get is it seems like this fiscal bombshell or whatever they want to call it we're having in the state is being brought on by these sales taxes that are coming to close. And why wouldn't it be more fiscal responsible to start planning ahead for when these taxes end, the day that they're enacted, the day that the money starts coming in? It seems like every time the state has a revenue stream, every penny gets spent. Nothing ever gets planned for ahead or for at the end of the line. And I agree completely that there needs to be something done as far as blowing up the whole mess and starting over. It seems like every time there's going to be a shortfall, the only thing you hear about is tops. You don't hear about everything else that maybe needs to be looked at,
Okay,
And,
thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Stafford, go ahead.
That's a great point, and there's a reason for that. So there's only a couple of things in Louisiana that aren't constitutionally protected by the voters. And the reason that is because during the general administration, a lot of funds were getting raided to fill holes in the budget. I don't know if you remember about 2 years ago on the ballot.
The constitutional protections go way back before the Jindal administration. Jindal was just very adept at ignoring them.
This is Stafford Civics 101.
Yeah, Stafford Civics 101.
When I
get ready.
Speaker, I'll let you know. So
Thank you so much.
The citizens constitutionally protected. About 2 years ago, we had to put money to protect the coastline funding we had on there because it was getting raided. You're 100% right. The problem is when we fund the government from sales taxes, we're subject to the economy and what happens. And you see what happened in Lafayette and Youngsville, what happened to their budgets. And the reality is that there are better ways to do it. The state has extremely low property taxes. And so we've got to find a more balanced approach to funding our government, for sure.
All right, Warren, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to comment on what the man said. Why is it we have to wait till there is a crisis before we then start trying to put together a plan to do anything about it? Well, that's the Louisiana way of doing things. And there was nothing more evident than that than this last freeze we had when we had the ice and the snow, and that how they sit there and they waited till everything gets accumulated on the roads. They shut the roads down, let it all freeze over. And then they say, well, tomorrow we're going to get together and formulate a plan. And they shut down I-10. You know how much that disrupted things? And not just here, across the country. But anyway, I called a friend of mine who retired from the Minnesota Highway Department. And now they deal with snow and ice quite frequently up there. And you know where they get the salt from?
Louisiana.
Avery Island, Louisiana. But we don't have salt down here. We don't know how to use it and don't know anything about it. So I said, what do y'all do with this stuff? And he said, well, first thing we do is we pre-treat the roads when you know that it's going to come down. He said, we'll go out there and we'll start salting the roads and all that stuff, when it first starts falling, or, even before it starts falling. Of course, up there, they get a pretty good idea when it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. He said, then you go from there. He said, you don't need snow plows down there. You never will. But he said, but you could use salt and some of that and, some aggregate, sand or what have you. But, It just boggles my mind. You sit there and let the thing freeze over, and then you say, well, tomorrow we're going to put together a plan. Go hire somebody from out of state and let them come down here and tell you how to do that.
All right, we're going to go to topic 4.
Yeah, we do that
I'll
with
do it for free.
We do that with everything else. Why not hire some out-of-staters to fix our problems?
All right, so topic 4, and Lafayette City Marshal Brian Pope's legal team filing a subpoena for the list of people who signed the recall petition against him. Now, recall organizers say that those things were destroyed, and what do y'all think? Are we nearing the end of this anytime soon? Or, Warren, I'm going to let you start on this one, and what you think about that. I mean, petitioning for the list of people who signed the recall petition?
I would, I thought the things were public notice because I thought that was kind of like a lawsuit that it's in the public domain. But am I wrong?
Carol's saying no.
Only if it's filed with a registrar.
And
they did not file. They knew they were short. I will give you a little history lesson about the Bowen attempt at the recall. Okay.
So basically what you're saying is...
Something you know a lot about. Go ahead.
No, actually, I was out of the country. We told them not to do it, that it wouldn't work, and they didn't listen to us. Those kids never listened to the adults.
You were involved in it, but you know about it.
Well, I know. Of course I know about it.
Go ahead.
And I also know what happened afterwards. If you have a minute, I'll...
Okay, hilarious. Okay. So what you're saying is since they didn't
right,
file
here's the deal.
It didn't have to be public documents.
During the Bowen administration, they had more than enough names. However, when they went to certify the names, they decertified a whole bunch of them. However, the papers were filed with the registrar so that he could certify or not certify. Exactly, right? Exactly. Okay, in this case, they knew they were 3,800 short. Mm-hmm. They didn't file the papers with the registrar. So there is no real public record.
Why would a okay, you can file suit
that's
for
my
anything,
understanding.
And you can file suit for anything that you want. But what motivates somebody to want the list of people who have signed a recall petition?
Well, ostensibly, his attorneys say that he won't be able to get a fair trial with people who signed the recall petition. But I would say he's going to have a hard time. Who in Lafayette doesn't know about the travails of the marshal?
The marshal is a criminal who's been elected, and.
When's it going to end, Bernie? That's your question? In 3 years when we vote him out. Because what's going on right now, if the DA does not come down on this guy, it's not the Attorney General's place. He can't do it unless he's invited in, and on a criminal matter, I don't think he has the standing to do that. However, it's up to the DA. And the judge invited the DA to weigh in on it, and the DA was silent, and when the news media asked the DA to make a comment, he said nothing.
So I'd like to point out a couple of things about Brian Pope real quick. Still on the Republican Parish Executive Committee. I know you guys can't kick him out, but y'all should still, if you want to, y'all should still put out a statement asking him to leave.
At the very least, he should be censured. Yes,
something, right? But they continue. It's at the point where it's becoming complicit. Let's be very clear about this. The domestic dispute that happened recently that made it all over it was on the KPOW's website and a couple others. The woman involved in that is the attorney for Steve Wilkerson, who was one of the guys who headed up the recall campaign. Steve was arrested immediately after a veteran of our military was arrested immediately after the recall failed, and it was for checks from 20 years ago that he didn't even remember, right? But he had an active warrant, and now there's this page on Facebook, I Like Pope, that is going around.
Seriously?
Yes, and is intimidating the other two ladies who ran it. They're pulling public or private information from past history, right, and making claims about them on Facebook and about
I'm
potential
scared.
Consequences.
What are they going to do to me?
and so this is as dirty gets, and it's disappointing to see our community be involved in something so bad. I don't know how Brian Pope shows his face in public, because I would be embarrassed if my integrity got publicly called into question the way that his is. And look, I realize that on this, maybe this isn't the radio show to talk about my integrity, right? Because I don't know that I have a lot of people who listen to the show who think I have any. But that being said, I'm embarrassed for our community. I'm embarrassed that we have this bully criminal running our marshal's office.
All right, Warren, what do you think?
The first thing I want to say is about the Parish Executive Committee. I am not in favor of asking people to resign or censoring people, any of that, because I've seen that stuff happening before in these little old bodies where people are actually elected by the voters to serve, and then they're going to turn around there just because they disagree with somebody on it. Even though what you're saying is very serious, I agree with all of that. But I've seen them sit there and just pick out somebody and try to get rid of them and just start in and build a little coalition that will just basically run them out of the thing. And that is so dangerous. Now, with what Stafford said about his integrity, if he has any, there's our radio friend in the next office over there, the next studio where Mr. Moon Griffon, he has a commercial on radio about somebody being an official sponsor of his program, and he said, I wouldn't let just anybody, heck, my reputation's on the line. And I'm thinking, Moon. Now, I know there's more than 4 people out there understand that.
We have a minute left of our show. I want to thank you all for participating and for the folks
I'm not
listening.
Done.
Oh, you have a little wrap up?
My turn.
I'm sorry.
Break them over the coals.
Jump on
it's
in
your birthday.
there.
It's your birthday. Take advantage of this.
And
That's
he's
right.
probably going to come
Rake
after me.
that criminal over the coals.
But Warren makes a very good point. He was elected by the Republican electors in that district, in District 8. So there is a problem there. I mean, there is a problem. It's not just up to the executive committee to get him off. But I don't know when the elections are for the next representative on the. But anyway, this is a long, sad saga for which the taxpayers are on the hook. The majority of his legal fees are being paid by the taxpayers. We have, and I went back and researched that Attorney General's opinion in 2011. Buddy Caldwell gave an opinion, and he specifically cited Shreveport and Lafayette. But the difference is Shreveport, Marshall, did not continue to line his pockets with the fees that he collected. However, the Lafayette Marshal continues to line his pockets to the tune of, well, his base salary is about 90-some with benefits, etc. So he's at least half of his salary is coming from the garnishments and fees. Those are to go to run his office. If you remember in the last budget hearing, Joel Robideau cut back because he wanted money from LCG, and he has a reserve fund, and he wanted money for vehicles, and Joel Robideau wisely cut back on his budget. Shreveport and Lafayette get major money from the municipality. That's why this is an emolument. Him putting that money in his pocket is illegal. There's an Attorney General's opinion about that. When he requested from Jeff Landry to give an opinion, Jeff Landry gave him an opinion. Jeff Landry cannot release that opinion. Only the marshal can release that opinion, and he didn't. So what do you think was in that opinion? Anybody want to guess?
Think about what kind of voter intimidation.
I guess I'll be the next one on his list. He used to be my neighbor. I liked him. I loved his little wife. It's just so sad to see somebody with so much potential to go so wrong so quickly.
Think about that massive amount of intimidation to say, hey, we want a list of the people that signed a petition to get me out of here. That is,
well,
I would tell you what, that is 100% pure.
Let me explain something to you, how bad that is. When Kenny Bowen got the list from the Registrar of Voters, I had a friend who happened to be serving on the Mayor's Commission of the Needs of Women. She went in to talk to Kenny about something that referred to that commission. He pulled the drawer open, got the list of anybody who signed the petition. He said, let me see here. Oh, you signed the petition? Forget about it.
Wingin It Wednesday, every Wednesday morning, brought to you by Service Cadillac. All right, Carol, Warren.
Happy birthday to me.
Barnett. All right.
Happy
have
birthday,
a good one.
Carol.
All right, kids. Thank you.
Get the paddle.